You're watching Eye on Africa on France 24. I'm James Creedon. These are the headlines from across the continent this evening. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari began a visit to South Africa on Thursday with a call to increase protection of foreign nationals. This comes weeks after a wave of xenophobic attacks targeting Nigerians in South Africa stirred up tensions between the two countries. And Thursday marked the first day of campaigning for the second and final round of Tunisia's presidential election. We'll take a look at what young Tunisians think of a fraught election campaign. And the past meets the present through photography. We'll take a look at a project in the Democratic Republic of Congo that combines old photos with contemporary ones in a bid to bring the country's past back to life. Thanks for watching. Now, the leaders of Africa's two economic giants met this Thursday with a visit by Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari to South Africa. More than 30 trade agreements were signed between the two states. The visit comes just weeks after a wave of violence against Nigerian nationals in South Africa. Relations between the two countries are often fraught with tensions on multiple levels. Nicolas Germain explains.
It was the first visit by a Nigerian leader in South Africa since 2013. It comes at a difficult time, just weeks after Nigerians were attacked in South Africa during a wave of xenophobic violence. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa once again apologized.
We have expressed our deep regret at the events of the past few weeks that manifested themselves through attacks that were directed at foreign nationals.
The two presidents talked about early warning mechanisms to avoid further violence, but did not give the details of the plan.
We have decided to work and take concrete measures together to prevent the reoccurrence of such unacceptable incidents in the future.
The two leaders also signed 30 trade and cooperation agreements covering industry, defense and agriculture. Nigeria and South Africa are the continent's two largest economies. There was more than $3 billion in trade between them in 2018, and Nigeria accounts for 64% of South Africa's total trade with West Africa. Some analysts say it's a love-hate relationship between Africa's two economic superpowers. Each country sees the other as its only rival on the continent in sports, business and culture. Some young South Africans accuse Nigerians either of peddling illegal drugs or of taking their jobs. But older South Africans know that historically Nigeria played an important role in providing support to Nelson Mandela's anti-apartheid movement.
And for more on that visit, I spoke earlier to Jane Flanagan in Cape Town. I started by asking her about the xenophobic attacks that overshadowed President Buhari's trip.
Well, there were terrible scenes in bigger cities in South Africa where crowds armed with sticks and machetes went from shop to shop, burning and looting, to the point where the police were at times overwhelmed and unable to push back the crowds. But millions of euros of businesses were destroyed and property absolutely ruined, entire livelihoods lost, built up over many years in South Africa. It wasn't just Nigerians who were caught up in the events. It was the Nigerian government who was the most vocal in condemning it and demanding an explanation from South Africa and what it was going to do about it. It withdrew its high pillar, and Cyril Ramaphosa was on the back foot for a while, seeming reluctant to admit there was any xenophobic element involved in the violence at all, until now it seems to have been accepted as fact. Cyril Ramaphosa was booed when he went to Robert Mugabe's funeral last month by the Zimbabweans, who've also been targeted in lots of scenes of violence and aimed at the foreign nationals in South Africa. So South Africa really has been quite isolated and embarrassed by these scenes that have played out in recent weeks.
Yet today, 30 different trade agreements announced by the two leaders, a focus on all of that potential for cooperation, lots of promises about putting an end to those xenophobic tensions. Can the two countries hope to turn the page now, to turn over a new leaf?
Well, obviously, this summit has been in the diary for a long time, and yet xenophobia did overshadow what the business was supposed to be about. Many analysts say that really what is driving this violence, this great anger that is focused on foreign nationals and primarily Nigerians, is in fact rooted in high levels of poverty, high levels of unemployment, and very few economic opportunities for South Africans who continue to live with grinding poverty. And they see foreigners arriving in South Africa, entrepreneurs, whether they're in the country illegally or legally, who are making money, who are taking up residence, taking houses here and so on. And it's very easy for that resentment to spill over into violence. And so plenty of people believe that these simmering tensions are always going to be very close to the surface, unless the real drivers of this anger, the poverty, the unemployment, and the deep sense of frustration is tackled. Then, of course, we can see a repeat of those scenes really any day.
Ugandan security personnel on Thursday detained 6 supporters of the pop star and presidential hopeful Bobi Wine for wearing red berets. Now, those berets are a banned symbol of his People Power pressure group. The 37-year-old has won widespread support with his own brand of caustic criticism of the powers that be. Wine's political ambitions and connections with young Ugandans via his music have seen the government clamp down on his support base. To northern Ethiopia next, where at least 20 people have been killed in the last 5 days. The deaths were due to clashes between regional special forces and a minority ethnic group in the state of Amhara. Ethiopia's second most populous province has been a flashpoint for tensions since last June, when the region's president was killed along with dozens of others. The clashes are another headache for Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Progressive reforms made by Ahmed have seen some regional strongmen attempt to build power bases of their own on an ethnic basis. Campaigning has officially kicked off in Tunisia for the second and final round of the country's presidential election. This despite calls to delay the vote by the party of one of the frontrunners, Nabil Karoui. He was jailed on corruption charges during the campaign. The country's electoral commission ruled on Wednesday that it was not postponing the vote, insisting that Karoui would be allowed to campaign from prison. The final date for the vote has been set for the 13th of October. Valerie de Camp reports.
One candidate is behind bars, but elections in Tunisia will go ahead as planned. They will take place on October 13th, with frontrunner Nabil Karoui campaigning from inside his prison cell. The media mogul has been detained since August on charges of money laundering and tax evasion.
We demand once more to enable Mr. Nabil Karoui to hold press and television interviews so that he can communicate with voters. The Commission has done what it has to do, and the important date is October 13th.
Karoui's opponent, Kais Said, is an independent law professor running on a low-budget campaign. Both inherit a flagging economy. 15% of the population is unemployed, especially young graduates. In this coffee shop, Tunisia's disenchanted youth have low expectations. Some have taken up low-paying jobs with political parties, even if they reject their policies.
During the campaign, political parties buy people off with money. They give 30 dinars to people in the cafes who do nothing. They use them to do their campaign work. Then they fire them. They become presidents, ministers, or whatever. And that's when they send us back to prison, to misery.
The election comes 2 months after the death of former President Beji Caid Essebsi, and has been seen as a crucial test for the country, the only democracy to emerge from the Arab Spring protests of 2011.
To Democratic Republic of Congo next, and a focus on photography. Baudouin Bikoko is a curator and photographer whose work often centres on remembering the past. His latest project is an exhibition called Congo Mirror, which mixes some of his own work with vintage photographs from Congolese photographers. Thomas Nicolon sent us this report.
DR Congo in a rear-view mirror. This is how photographer Baudouin Bikoko devised his latest project, called Shadows, Colors and Lights, a series of photographs that encourages the public to question the history of Congo but also the future.
It's a reminder of past decades. I'm juxtaposing the past with the present and showing the public that the past and the future are just the same thing.
Baudouin also dusted off vintage photographs from great Congolese photographers like Jean Desparas or Ambroise Ngaimoko. These images were taken in the 50s and 60s and reflect an ever-changing Congo.
This photo was right after independence, and we can see race mixing. I mean, some white people and some black people were coming together and saying, let's have fun, let's dance and sing. After all, we're all human.
Baudouin has been a photography enthusiast since he was a child, and he grew up to be not only an artist, but also a curator of photography. Today, he wants to share his personal collection of negatives and old snapshots through exhibitions.
Since I support photography as a job, since I'm here to reassert the value of photographs and their authors, I told myself I should show this to everyone and tell everyone that it belongs to them as well.
After many an exhibition in Kinshasa, Baudouin Bikoko is now working on his biggest project yet, a Congolese Center for Photographic Art, where people from all backgrounds can come and admire images of DR Congo today, tomorrow, and of course, of times gone by.
Trip down memory lane there in Kinshasa. That brings us to the end of this Eye on Africa. Thanks for watching.